committee members of the council around and the secretariat. I would like first of all to thank TLS for inviting me to speak at this 70th anniversary of the society. For me, this is a great honor, knowing that there are more qualified persons to speak on this topic, but the fact that they selected me, I find that to be a great honor, and I'm grateful. And the invitation for me is special because of the second reason. I hope and believe that those who selected me to speak did not look at my CV. If they did, they have discovered that I share age with the TLS. I was born on the same year that Tanganyika Law Society Act was enacted, and we are therefore age mates. Only that I'm a few months older than TLS, because TLS Act came into force on 1st January 1955. But I became effective immediately after birth, and by troubling my mother and so on and so on. You're already asserting yourself, you know. So I started a little bit earlier. Thirdly, Mr. President, I would like to congratulate you for your election to office. This was a victory deserved because you fought for it. We are already seeing some of the results of your presence in TLS, but for us, as usual, we are used, we shall demand for more. I have been a member of TLS for the last 40 years. My number on the roll is 428. This means I have seen presidents come and go. And if they, and this they should be in capital, if they don't fight your candidature, and if they don't attempt to block you, then you are useless to members. But if those who are fought by them and fight to become and succeed, those are the people which members like. I think I've made my point. Now, I will touch some of the issues which were covered very effectively by Senior Counsel Ngalo, in order to put, because I'm supposed to look at the contribution of TLS in making in the constitution making. I have been asked to look at involvement of Tanganyika Law Society and the civic movements in constitutional making in Tanzania. I will concentrate on TLS, where I'm more comfortable, and leave the civic movements to my friends Victoria and Ananilea, who are more knowledgeable about these institutions. And I believe this way we shall cover the whole area. Now, as the Senior Counsel Ngaro said, TLS, strictly speaking, is not a civil society. It's not a civic society. It is an act of parliament, and therefore it is a statutory organization for professionals, and that's why it has managed to play a very important role and that's why, because we are a statutory body, that's why those people I've been referring to have been making it has made it for them possible for us to derail us from time to time. However, over the years, members of TLS have interpreted the Act very positively and therefore being relevant. Senior Counsel Ngalo looked at the objectives of the society as provided in Section 4 of the Act. And I will look at only one, that is Section 4E, which says the objective of the objects for which the society was established are, number E, to protect and assist the public in Tanzania in all matters touching auxiliary and incidental to law. And that's the path which TLS uses when it discusses constitution and other areas. Other areas do not invite the public into TLS, but this one is what is relevant. The section opens the door to TLS to be useful to the members of the public in areas where they have no capacity, but the society can be assisted. That is in the area of the law, and the constitution is part of the law. And that, as I said, that is the entry point which is effectively utilized by Tanganyika Law Society. However, the utilization of this provision has always depended on the type of members we have. If you can use Section 4, subsection E, that will depend on what type of membership do we have in the organization. And now what I will do is to look at the profile of the membership of TLS over the years. And I will not start in 1954. I will start with 1921. 1921, that's when we got the first person on the roll, the first advocate. The first advocate we got was 1921. Now, for the next 100 years, after 1921, that is up to 2021, the roll had, number one, up to 10,436. That is the way it was. And advocate number one was an advocate called Chitale. And the last advocate to clock 100 years was on the roll number 10,436, who was admitted on 9th July 2021, was an advocate called Mwakisiki, Edward Mwakisiki. That's how you close the 1921 to 2021. As Advocate Ngaro explained, now the numbers have increased in these last 2-3 years from 2021 to 2024. Now, to understand and appreciate the contribution of TLS to the public, one has to look at the type and the quality of the advocates admitted on the roll. Without being racist and without being discriminative, if you look carefully and you scan the roll of advocate, you will see these factors. Number one, the majority of advocates over the years have been either British, Indian, or from Commonwealth origin. Some are from Caribbean, Jamaica, and so on. And therefore, these advocates over the years had no interest in the public. Had no interest in the public. They were only interested in business. For them, the members of public were irrelevant. They were doing business. These natives, for them, were useless. So that explains inactivity of TLS during these long years, that it was very active because they were basically doing business. But, Mr. President, to give credit where it is due, it is these same advocates, where it was very relevant, they jumped in. And I'll give an example. For example, In 1958, our father of nation, Mwalimu Nyerere, was charged for defamation. He was charged for defamation at the Kivukoni Magistrates Court. Kivukoni Magistrates Court is the court now which is used as the commercial court. That's where Mwalimu was taken in July for defaming two district commissioners, District Commissioner Weeks of Msoma and District Commissioner Scott of Songea. Now, Mwalimu was taken there. To cut the long story short, he was found guilty of defamation and convicted for writing an article in the Tano weekly paper called Sauti ya Tano. And then he was fined 3,000 shillings or 6 months in custody. Now, of course, you know, there was, in the 50s, there was this question of leadership to African countries coming from the jail to the State House. Kenyatta, Mugabe, and others. But the Tano people said, no, we are going to contribute this money and give it to, and pay the fine. So led by Bibi Titi Mohammed and others, they mobilized the people, contributed 3,000 shillings, and Mwalimu was free. But what I want to say, who defended Mwalimu? This is very important. It is these same advocates on the roll. For example, the defense team of Mwalimu was led by D.N. Pitt, a British barrister. British had defended a lot of freedom fighters in Nyasaland, in Rhodesia, and so on. But assisting Pitt was Advocate K.L. Javeri. I think Senior Counsel Ngalo knows him. And he was, actually he was president of Tanganyika Law Society when I was admitted to the bar in 1984 actually. So Javeri was assisting Pitt. Javeri was admitted in 1949. He was number 59 on the roll. Another advocate was Mahmoud Nassar Tansi, who was number 65 on the roll. And another advocate assisting in this case was Al-Nur Kasum, number 44 on the roll. Al-Nur Kasum later on became a minister of water, energy, and so on. He was in politics later on. He became an advocate in 1955. Therefore, the point I'm making is that although these lawyers were for business and not very active, but when it became necessary, they came in. That's how we see Javeri, Ratansi, and Al-Nur Kasum assisting in Mwalimu's case. Of course, as we have been told, most of the lawyers from 1921 up to 1958 were either British, Indian, or Commonwealth. As we were told by Senior Counsel Ngalo, the first African to enter the role was Agustino Saidi in 1958. Agustino Saidi later became Chief Justice of Tanzania for some time. He was admitted in 1958. He was 191 on the roll of advocates. He was followed by Humphrey Mkondia in 1961 and Juma Mawala also in 1961. Those were the lawyers, Tanzanian lawyers before independence. Now after independence followed Mark Bomani, Christopher Matemba, and I could add here Edward Seaton, who is from Caribbean but did a lot of work for Tanzania. Although Senior Counsel Ngalo did not want to say much about himself, but I will say it here. He was admitted on 22nd November 1973, and he is number 349 on the roll of advocates. You should clap for him. Now, when TLS was eventually born in 1954, there are 141 advocates in Tanganyika. The last advocate to be admitted before TLS Act came into force was Hugh Charles Walter, who was admitted on 31st December 1954 and the Royal 141. And the first advocate to be admitted after the new law was a lady, Principe Carrasco, who was admitted on 18th March 1955, and then she became number 142. Now, the point I'm going through this data is to indicate that with this type of society of lawyers in place, no problem would have been expected from the British government, colonial government, nor from the new independent government. This was professionals, leave them alone, they are not troubling us. That is the situation. Now, things were to change after independence. Now, here, Mr. President, I will quickly look at areas where TLS participated very effectively in the constitutional area. And I would say the first area was in 1963. In 1963, TANU, when we became independent, we were multi-party. Now in 1963, Mwalimu, the NEC, National Executive Committee of the party, and Mwalimu decided that Tanganyika should be a one-party state. And because of the strength of TANU, Mwalimu formed a commission, and he told this commission, your work is not to decide whether you want to be multi-party or continue to be multi-party. Your work is to see how we become one party and what are the conditions. So there was no choice. But Tanganyika Law Society was not scared. It wrote a memorandum to the commission which was elected by the president, and it demanded that Tanganyika should not only remain multi-party, but also there should be a Bill of Rights in the Constitution. And if you remember, in the Constitution of 1961, we didn't have a Bill of Rights. We didn't have a Bill of Rights, and we were the only country in the Commonwealth which was becoming independent without a Bill of Rights. So TLS said, we need a Bill of Rights, and we want to remain multi-party. That is what it said. Of course, during those days, TLS was ignored. Later on, we remained, and we were entrenched as a one-party state. The second area where TLS came in was in the enactment of the interim constitution of the United Republic of Tanzania of 1965. Now, if you remember, after the union with Zanzibar, we continued using the Tanganyikan constitution for some time, waiting to have a permanent constitution. But in the meantime, we decided to have an interim constitution, temporary constitution. This temporary constitution, as you know, became temporary for 12 years to 1977. But then, when this commission to prepare this constitution was working, TLS came up again and said, no, we don't want one party, we want multi-party, we want our Bill of Rights. And of course, as I said at the beginning, in 1965, this constitution, which entrenched one-party state, de jure, came up, and what TLS was saying was ignored. And after being ignored, what followed was Act number 8 of 1975, which now we did not only have one party, but it entrenched party supremacy. Act number 8 of 1975 provided that all political activities in Tanzania shall be conducted by or under the auspices of the party. That is what is said, and also it continued to say that the functions and all organs of the state of the United Republic of Tanzania shall be performed under the auspices of the party. And that's where we get the name Chama Kushika Hatamu under Act number 8 of 1975. 2 years later, after party supremacy, when the new constitution came, party supremacy of 1975 was now put in Article 10 of the new constitution of 1977. And if you look now, after we went to multi-party in 1992, if you look at Article 10 of the constitution today, if you have a copy, you will see a blank, a blank. Kifungu hiki kimefutwa. That was the kifungu on party supremacy. Kifungu hiki kimefutwa. And that's why lawyers sometimes say that Tanzanian constitution is peculiar in the sense that it is the only constitution in the world which has blanks. If a constitution is supposed to be like a contract, you cannot have a contract with the blanks. And in Kiswahili they put it even more strongly, katiba ina mapengo, it has no teeth. So that is the genesis of this katiba kuwa na mapengo, because this pengo was removing party supremacy in a multi-party situation. Now, the third area where TLS came up strongly fighting for rights and the constitution was 1983. In 1983, there were constitutional amendments proposals from the sole ruling party. Now, the party, National Executive Committee, came up with 5 areas. These are 5 areas which wananchi should discuss and say what they want. Area number 1, the powers of the president. Area number 2, consolidation of the authority of the parliament. Area number 3, strengthening the representative character of the National Assembly. Area number 4, consolidation of the union. And area number 5, consolidation of people's power. If you remember, during those days, they were coming up with this because even regional commissioners in Tanzania were members of parliament. And therefore, the government could pass any law in the parliament because it had the majority, a very silent majority. Now, the party said, you cannot say anything beyond these areas. Beyond these areas. You should contribute from within this area. Now, TLS organized a 3-day meeting to discuss these proposals by the party. This meeting was held at Luther House. For us in the older generation, Luther House was a very important place. All our meetings, whatever we were discussing in TLS, we used to meet at Luther House in Dar es Salaam. I hope you know where it is. And in the meetings of TLS, judges used to attend, including the Chief Justice, and other people, members of the public used to come to the TLS meetings. So it was not a members meeting. Everybody was invited to come to this meeting. So we had people like Chief Justice Nyalali, Judge Uvapili, Yona Mwakasendo, Lewis Makame, Robert Kisanga, and all of them attended this meeting. As I said, advocates, students, lecturers, members of the public came. Now, at this meeting of 1983, there was a rebellion. Participants refused to be guided by the directives of the party, indicating that not all they said, not all Tanzanians are party members, so we should be able to discuss the constitution, which covers everybody and not only the party members. Now, at this meeting of 1983, Mr. President, we had 2 stars emerged. The first star was Advocate Mabere Marando. He led a group that said that debate should be open, and that all people people have a right to discuss the Constitution. The second star was James Mapalala. I think you remember him. Most of you remember him. He later became a leader of the CAF and so on. Mapalala led a group which insisted that there should be a discussion of multi-party in this meeting. And the people discussed, people opened up and they discussed all these issues. And then we had two stars and one victim. Now, the victim, there was also one victim and one success in 1983 in the efforts by TLS. Now, the victim was the late Wolfgang Dorado. Dorado was the Attorney General of Zanzibar, but he also attended this meeting, and he was a very active lawyer, very good lawyer. Now, during the meeting, Dorado went further and said, we don't only have a problem with the Constitution, we also have a problem with the names of the two parts of the Union. When we talk of Tanzania, Tanzania mainland, and then Tanzania Visiwani. He said, no. These names are not all right. He said that we need to have proper names of our country. And he said, if you are talking of Tanzania Zanzibar, Tanzania mainland, where do we put Kilwa and the Mafia? Are they mainland? And so on. So he kept on challenging those. And because he was talking heavy things in a very sarcastic manner, the parties, the powers that be were not very happy with Dorado. So after this meeting, he was arrested and he was detained for 120 days under the Preventive Detention Act of 1962. You can see the powers of TLS. You call a meeting and people are detained 120 days under the Preventive Detention Act. The success we had, the success of 1983 is very important, because when the people opened, they also came up with a demand for a Bill of Rights, very strongly for a Bill of Rights. And eventually the government gave in. They said, no, it's all right, we shall have a Bill of Rights. Although we didn't have this in the what the party wanted, we shall have a Bill of Rights as well. So what of the outcome of TLS's efforts was to have a Bill of Rights in Tanzania. Of course, the government is never defeated. We had an Attorney General. I can name him. There's nothing bad about it. The Attorney General was Honorable Mr. Justice Lubuva. So he said he did two things. One, he said that we shall have a Bill of Rights, but we shall suspend it for 3 years. We shall suspend it for 3 years, and then it will become operational after 3 years. That's why if you read the cases of human rights, Chumchua Marwa and others, they start in 1988. It's not accidentally. The act was 1984, but it became operational 1988. 1988, when 3 years elapsed, where the government had said it wanted time to put its house in order, it had not touched a single law. So Lubuva, in an article written, a copy of which I have, said, when it came to 1988, they thought in government, should we continue the suspension, or should we allow the act to become operational? That is Amendment 5 of the 5th Amendment to the Constitution. The government, its wise leadership said, we shall allow them to continue to come out. And that's why Bill of Rights took 3 years to come into force, because now they allowed it to operate in 1985. But there were also some other semi-victims of the work we did in TLS. When, after this TLS meeting of 1983, those people came and arrested Mapalala. They arrested Mapalala, put him in detention, under Preventive Detention Act, and also those who had assisted him to draft a letter, because Mapalala at the meeting had written a letter to Mwalimu. Mwalimu, time has come for this country to be multi-party. So, because those who had assisted him to draft the letter, Advocate Saidi Hamad El Mamri and the journalist Mzirai Kangero were also arrested. But they were put for days at Msimbazi police station and later released. But Mapalala remained retained in custody for quite some time. That is number 3. Number 4, Mr. Chairman, I'm almost still there. 1991. 1991, President Mwinyi appointed a commission to discuss whether we should be multi-party or single-party under Chief Justice Francis Nyalali. Now, we had a TLS called a meeting which was held at the Institute of Finance Management, IFM meeting. This was also a 3-day meeting. We always had this tradition of having three days meeting. Now, after this meeting, during this meeting of IFM, 2 stars emerged also. And also, the stars who emerged, in order to save time, the first star to emerge was the president of Tanganyika Law Society during that time in 1991. It was Advocate Bob Nyanga Makani. Now, after the discussion of 3 days, what Makani as president did was to say that instead of going to Nyalali's commission, we can vote as lawyers whether we want multi-party or we want one party. So there was a voting carried out during the meeting, and the overwhelming majority said they want to continue with the multi-party. Now that angered the people, particularly in the party, because it was in the next news, wanasheria wapiga kura, they want multi-party. And then the party was cast. Who do you think they are? And one of the persons who was very angry was the Secretary General of the CCM by then, Mzee Rashid Kawawa. And he was the one who castigated TLS for voting for multi-party instead of going to Nyalali's commission. Now, of course, the second star who arose out of 1991 was Reverend Christopher Mtikila. A lot of people don't know the history of Reverend Mtikila. Mtikila was first put into limelight by TLS, because he came up very eloquent and spoke for change. And over time, Mtikila created a lot of changes, not only the cases. For example, when the political parties were eventually allowed to operate, Mtikila said that he's not going to look for members, because you are supposed to look for members from certain regions in the on the mainland and certain regions in Zanzibar and Pemba. Mtikila said, and he told the registrar of political parties, I am not going to look for members in a foreign country. And he said, it is only in a foreign country where you go with a passport. And during those times, a lot of you people don't know, to go to Zanzibar, you had to have a passport. So Mtikila said, no, you shouldn't ask me to have passport to go to a foreign country to get members. And silently, the passport issue was put aside. Today, we no longer need a passport to go to Zanzibar. And because of Mtikira, nobody speaks about this. And then Mtikira was brought up by TLS. TLS. These are things which should be in on our record. Now, Mr. Chairman, to complete, in 2011, that is when we had the last intervention. TLS had last intervention in the constitutional review process when President Kikwete appointed the commission, the commission under Judge Joseph Warioba to go through the constitutional review process. Let me just say quickly that there were 4 interventions. There were 4 interventions by TLS. Number 1, when the law on constitutional review came out, TLS wrote a very long memorandum indicating the weaknesses in the law of 2011 related to the constitutional review process. This is not very long ago. You can look at this, the intervention in TLS, what type of areas it indicated that it was not, these were not areas that could be discussed and could be helpful to Tanzanians. And also, TLS wrote a long memorandum when the commission was now collecting issues. You'll find the contribution of TLS as item number 304 on page 296 of one of the collections of the book by the Tume called Tume ya Mabadiliko ya Katiba, viambatanisho vya ripoti ya Tume ya Mabadiliko ya Katiba, December 2013. You'll find our contribution. I try to trace this document, the actual document. I couldn't get it official because you remember when the Tume was disbanded, most of the things were taken by the government, and therefore one cannot access them unless you had this in advance. But also, TLS took time also to indicate, to make more initiatives, and I can indicate 3. Between Warioba 1 and Warioba 2, actually between the first draft and the last document, TLS conducted a baraza of 270 participants at a National Museum, and here they gave their views which were given to Warioba Commission. These were views in 57 pages. Also, TLS provided its views on the second draft of Warioba, maoni kuhusu rasimu ya pili ya katiba ya Jamhuri ya Muungano 2014, and this was printed also in order to be attractive. There are also cartoons in. I have a copy of that, 28 pages. TLS also provided a write-up on the final Katiba Pendekezwa. After Katiba Pendekezwa, before the referendum, TLS produced a 38-page document to assist the normal people who are not lawyers, how to understand referendum. That was a big achievement by the party. It was ijue katiba inayopendekezwa, ipe uhai kura yako ya uamuzi kwa mustakabala wa taifa. This was done in June 2015. To end, there is no doubt that there has been a lot of work in the process of implementing Section 4 of the Act establishing TLS. However, the work is scattered from 1963 to date. All this work need to be collected and put together. It took me a lot of time to get all these data and try to make sense to other people. So we need to collect these materials from 1963 honor people like Maparala, people like Vitikira and others. We need to collect all these documents and put it together. We should not let this important work of TLS to go to waste. This is something which TLS leadership can reflect on, what can be done. Lastly, let me take this opportunity to thank people who assisted me when I was searching around for materials to present to prepare this presentation. I would like to thank Dr. Indimandi of the School of Law, University of Dar es Salaam. I would also like to thank Advocate Caleb Bugamaya, former Chief Executive Officer of TLS. I would like to thank Advocate Francis K. Stoller, former President of TLS. And also I would like to thank Advocate Macpherson Mshana, Program Officer, Public Affairs and Protection of TLS. And of course, last but not least, I would like to thank Ms. Jacqueline Mwingwa, the Program Officer, Public Protection Unit, who made it possible for me to come here. I thank you very much, and I apologize for taking more time than as plotted.